Hi, my name is Sam, and I'm an autistic employee at the Duke Autism Center. Myself and a couple other autistic employees at the center have been very excited to put together this short video on bullying prevention. And the motivation behind this video is that unfortunately, bullying is a far too common occurrence for autistic individuals. Many autistic children and also, unfortunately, several autistic adults do experience bullying. And while the exact estimate of how common this is varies from study to study, some studies have put this number as high as 94%, so potentially the overwhelming majority of individuals. Um, and sadly, this can start from a very young age. One story that I read a few years ago and has really stuck with me ever since is this example here, where there's a young 3-year-old who came home from preschool and was constantly repeating to himself essentially that he was stupid because that was what he was hearing and picking up. And I believe, based on the rest of the story, that this is a child who wasn't communicating verbally a lot. So for that to be one of his first phrases is really heartbreaking. And I think illustrates how bullying can have such a long lasting impact on autistic individuals. So our hope is that by developing more bullying prevention initiatives, not only can we reduce or prevent this kind of really painful experience from happening to autistic people, but also that we can create environments which are positive, where there's not only the absence of bullying, but also where there's sort of the presence of safety and inclusion and for children to feel like they belong. And my hope is that that can have a more long lasting positive impact. So in the rest of this video, we'll be sharing some of our own experiences with bullying and various suggestions related to that. And I hope it's of some help. Thank you so much for watching.
I was bullied a lot. They just called me some really mean names. I did not like it. I was sad. I was hurt. I went to my room. I was sitting inside alone. I balled up. I was crying. I was angry. I was so angry. Like I didn't know what to do. But the teachers wouldn't have me when I went to go report it.
Most of my bullying experiences were in high school, and it wasn't necessarily, the stereotypical shove in a locker kind of bullying. There was some teasing, like that definitely happened, like that really overt kind of bullying, but even that wasn't the most common. I'd say the most common bullying was like more subtle, where like kids would use certain like naivetes I had about social cues to trick me into saying or doing things that would get me into trouble or would get me laughed at, or they would exclude me from stuff and lie to me about stuff. And
I definitely was perceived as being socially different in some way for pretty much as long as I can remember. But when I was very little, I don't think that children had as much of a negative feeling attached to that. They would just notice that I was different, and it was neither good or bad, just a difference. And then as I got closer to middle school, I think that was maybe around the age where people began developing a sense of social judgment in a way. And so these differences suddenly became problems or things to be teased about. And I would experience, sort of classic bullying, like kids tying my shoelaces to the desk, knocking books out of my hand, and so on. Um, but the most difficult part was really just the overall feeling of isolation, kind of feeling very much out of place in any social environment and having people kind of continuously avoid you or exclude you. I think that has probably had a more lasting impact. Um,
As we heard from Raghav, Jordan, and Sam describing their own experiences, examples of bullying can include name-calling, physical violence, teasing, exclusion from social activities or groups, and taking advantage of a neurodivergent person's tendency to miss social cues in order to tease them. Repeated exposure to bullying throughout childhood and adolescence can cause feelings of sadness, loneliness, fear, low self-esteem, and isolation.
Well, there was a no bullying sign in high school because they were pretty strict about the rules there. They're pretty strict about the rules, and whoever bullied will get sent to the break room. Will get sent to the principal's office.
A wider acceptance of people who are quote unquote different would be a real first step. I think that if we taught from a young age people to be accepting of people who are strange or different for like various reasons, not just like if they have autism, but like any number of things that could be considered a strange behavior, so long as it's not a like violent or problematic behavior, those things need to be addressed. But if we were more comfortable with people just being weird or different or, I don't know, loud or obnoxious and whatnot, then there would be less bullying.
I would tell them to talk about their experiences, tell them that bullying is not tolerated. They should have sessions on, they should have school engaging conversations about how bullying is not tolerated anywhere, ever. They should have a no bullying policies on the wall that bullying will not be tolerated.
According to North Carolina state law, a strong bullying prevention policy must include definitions of bullying, descriptions of prohibited behavior, clear communication that bullying is not tolerated, enforced consequences for violations, and statements prohibiting retaliation against a person who reports bullying. For more information about school bullying laws in North Carolina, visit stopbullying.gov.
Keep in mind that autistic individuals may not express feelings of sadness or distress in the same way that a non-autistic person would. So if someone is saying that they are having difficulty being bullied or being abused, for example, they might feel extremely sad inside, but might not be crying or sort of overtly expressing that sadness when they talk about it. And so it's really important to take things seriously based on the content of what someone's saying and not necessarily how they're saying it. And likewise, if you see that someone is being bullied, but they maybe aren't visibly reacting to it emotionally, not to necessarily assume that that means that they're fine and handling it okay on their own. It could just mean that they're not, that they're expressing it in a different way.
Like there were people who tried to warn me, but I didn't accept it until it was like obvious. Like I didn't accept that I was being lied to until I walked in on the lie and had it like thrown in my face. Unfortunately, sometimes you've it's not enough to be told. Sometimes you have to like really experience it viscerally to finally believe it. And it can also be a difficult question of like what to actually do about it if you're an authority figure witnessing bullying, because like there have been like my school had anti-bullying like assemblies and signs and stuff, and that doesn't always work. It can like oftentimes if there's no enforcement mechanism, people will just get sneaky about it. So there does need to be a strong enforcement mechanism, and but that can get into trouble too, because if you're getting bullied and you tell on people, then like sometimes they stop, sometimes they get in trouble the one time and they get sneakier about it, and you get labeled a snitch, and then you face other types of social punishments that don't necessarily make life easier.
I wish you could have helped me, talked to me about it. There was that they would be on my side, make sure bullying is not tolerated, and stick up for me, but they never did.
Our advice for teachers is to understand what autism looks like and how an autistic student might display feelings of sadness or distress differently. To look out for the signs of bullying, talk to the victim about what's going on, model tolerance for differences, and communicate zero tolerance for bullying to the entire class.
They would have wished they would got anonymously go and reported it to someone who's higher up than the teachers, like the authorities and stuff. But they did not. They didn't do anything about it.
It does kind of become incumbent on like everyone in the situation to take some responsibility, which is hard. I had a friend who was a very close friend of mine who never personally bullied me and never wanted to hurt me, but ultimately succumbed to the peer pressure of the people who were bullying me, and that friendship kind of imploded. And I've talked to him recently, and we've like reconciled, and he felt very bad about it. But in the moment, that social pressure can get even like the most well-intentioned of people to be quiet in the face of cruelty.
I loved to go to football games in college, man. Loved to go to football games. I was happy there. I was cheering, and some of my other friends were not bullies to me. They supported me. Would help me watch the game together. We had a great time. I really want to go back. I remember we want to go back to those times. I really miss those times.
Our advice for anyone who sees bullying happening in school is to stick up for your peers. Don't participate in the bullying. Report harmful actions to an adult. And find common interests or activities to enjoy with your classmates.
Try to find environments for your child where they can be more of themselves or feel more included. Personally, especially during the years where I was experiencing the most bullying or isolation, I really enjoyed camps or sort of STEM mathematics events because those were a chance to get outside of my usual environment and often to be in an environment that was a little bit more welcoming of social awkwardness in some way. And for each child, it's going to be a different environment. It could be something based on a favorite interest, where if they talk about their favorite interest at length, they won't be as shamed for it. It could be maybe a group with other children who are neurodivergent or autistic, or it could be something totally different. Maybe a group that's really high energy and high intensity with a certain activity. So if a child has a lot of energy, they fit better there. I guess just finding environments that are naturally adapted for your child to succeed can kind of bring a bright spot to their life and something for them to look forward to, even if they're experiencing difficulty at school.
I guess my advice to parents is be as compassionate and caring as you can, but understand that you can't force your child to change. You can't force your child to see things the way you want them to see it. It's like, if they're going to realize it, it's got to come from them. It's got to be something they come to on their own. Nobody changes because someone in authority tells them over and over, you have to. I would also say that while I totally understand the impulse to get really involved, while I totally understand the impulse to, when you see your child struggling, when you see people treating your child badly, I understand the impulse to like really get involved. That can create a problem too, where like if a parent gets too involved, then they become like labeled a mama's boy, or it's like, oh, your mom's fighting your battles for you, or like you could end up getting involved in ways that actually make the situation worse. It's a balancing act. You don't want to just sit back and watch your kid get beat up. But
Our advice to parents is to be compassionate and caring with your child. Find places where your child is safe and free to be themselves. And be mindful that overprotectiveness can sometimes make bullying worse.
don't get violent, don't get erratic, but stand up for yourself. Never let a bully get away with bullying you. If you let them get away with it, they will think that they can do it again. So if you feel you're being bullied, stand up for yourself. Call the person out. They will more likely back off if they think, oh, this is somebody who, if I push them, they're going to push back.
The golden rule. This rule will never change in your child a gazillion years from now. The rest of your life, you should remember this. Treat others the way you want to be treated. If you have nothing nice to say, then don't say it at all. Keep those mean thoughts in your head, but don't say it out loud.
Thank you so much for watching and for listening to Raghav, Sam, and Jordan share their thoughts. For more resources on bullying prevention, visit the links below and visit our website at autismcenter.duke.edu.